Hello and welcome to week one of Global Leadership and Management. This week we will be covering chapter one of the leadership experience. What does it mean to be a leader? Before we get rolling, my name is Jeff Morgan. I am the instructor for the course. Here's a picture of me and my daughter a couple years ago. I am a father in the Bay Area and a teacher, and I've been teaching for 20 years now. I certainly enjoy teaching and learning. I've been very fortunate to have some amazing teachers throughout my educational and professional career, and that is a debt I owe to those great educators and something I hope to pass on to you, that I will do a great job teaching this course and helping you navigate through the material here. So, in chapter one, we're going to understand the full meaning of leadership. We're going to recognize and facilitate the 6 fundamental transformations in today's organizational leaders. And we're going to identify the primary reasons that leadership is derailed and some of the new paradigms and skills that will help you avoid getting derailed as a leader. We're going to recognize the traditional functions of management, which is much different than leadership, and we'll go through a little bit of the differences between leadership and management, and just understand and appreciate the crucial importance of providing direction, alignment, being good at maintaining relationships, personal qualities and outcomes, and explain how leadership has evolved throughout history and how the approaches today are much different than they were in early leadership development in the during the Industrial Revolution, and as organizations and corporations were beginning to form throughout the last 50 to 100 years here. So leadership is an influence of relationship among leaders and followers who intend in real change and outcome that reflect their shared purpose. So it does take leaders and followers to create real change, and it's about creating a relationship and a vision that motivates people to follow leadership. Leadership is not management. People aren't coerced. Hopefully they are inspired and they're encouraged and they're energized by a vision that creates change. Leadership is multifaceted. It includes influence and intention and personal responsibility and integrity and change and shared purpose and followers. So it is a multi-dimensional discipline, and this we'll get into more and more as we continue throughout the course. But just know that leadership is no one skill. It is multifaceted, and it often changes depending on the situation and the organization. So it requires influence. Relationship among people is not a passive thing. It's multi-directional. And as I said, it is not coercive. It's reciprocal. So you have to have both influence, and then it needs to be reciprocated by followers that are engaged. And it needs to involve people that want substantial and substantive change. Organizations are not, at least the good ones, are not dormant. They're always changing and evolving, and people are learning. So this is something that's very key in leadership. Qualities required for effective leadership are also needed in an effective follower. Like I said, it is a two-way street, and although you can have great leaders, you also need great followers in the organization. Effective leaders think for themselves. They carry out assignments with energy and enthusiasm, and leadership is shared amongst followers. Like, this is the other piece that's key: is effective leaderships empower people who work with them and alongside them to take on responsibility, to take on leadership roles in higher levels of, tasks. Leadership is not working at a fast food restaurant and you're given a number of tasks to do, and that's all. Leadership is inspiring people to take on more responsibility, to think for themselves, and to really be engaged in improving the organization as a whole. So a paradigm is a shared mindset that represents a fundamental way of thinking and perceiving and understanding the world. And so we will get into this course how the paradigm, the way that people think, the mindset that really represents the fundamental way people have approached leadership has changed over the years. And the people that are operating in the old paradigm are unfortunately no longer effective leaders. So this has changed, this has created a shift, a paradigm shift in the mindset and the way that people have been thinking. So here's the contrast. The old paradigm or way of thinking of a leader was someone who is stabilizing, they're controlling, maybe it's competitive, they avoid diversity and they come out as the hero. Kind of pile on my back, I will carry you through whatever needs to be carried, and we'll achieve this together as long as you do exactly what I say. So that is the old paradigm, kind of a top-down way of managing, that there's one way to do it, and I know the way to do it, and either it is my way or the highway. And this has really transitioned to a new paradigm shift, a new way of thinking of a leader as a change maker, as a facilitator, as a collaborator, as promoting diversity, and as being humble, and really taking the mindset that I don't have all the answers. I don't know the way everything should be done, but collectively as an organization and together, we will be able to achieve what we need to achieve. That I am here to support you, and I'm not here to be someone saying that I have all the answers and it is either my way or the highway. So this has been a real paradigm shift in the way people are currently leading organizations and groups. So management and vision. So management is much different than leadership. And this is a key learning outcome of this course, is really understanding that management is about the attainment of the organizational goals. Those are the people that do the planning and the organizing and the staffing and adding direction and controlling the organizational resources. So the management follow up and follow through with the vision of the organization. So the leader's job is really to create vision, to create direction, to create an ambitious and desirable future for the organization. And then the management's role is to do all the planning and the organizing and the staffing and the directing and the controlling of the organizational resources to ensure that this vision is realized. So here's a great graph about the real difference between management and leadership. As you can see with direction, management is more about the plan and the budget. Leadership is more about creating vision and strategy and higher order thinking. And when it comes to aligning with that vision, the management's role is into organizing it and creating structure and making sure that there's processes and procedures for everything. Leadership's role is to create a shared culture, create a vision, create learning opportunities, and encouraging people to network and be flexible. In relationships, management use their position as power, and they say if you're not doing your job correctly, maybe you'll be fired, and if you are doing it correctly, maybe you'll get a raise. And they focus on very specific goals. Leadership, on the other hand, is they invest in people. They inspire people to be better with purpose and trust. So this is much different, as you can see. Sometimes organizations have both. Good organizations have both. They have a leadership side and they have a management side, but they're much different roles. Personal qualities, managers are emotionally distant. They want people to conform. They are very, like I said, top down. Leadership, on the other hand, is they have emotional connections. They have an open mind. They're listening. They often exhibit courage and character. In terms of outcomes, the management job is to maintain stability and create a culture of effectiveness, where the leadership's role is to create change and a culture of agility and integrity. So essentially, leadership is always out front. They're always trying to say, what's coming up next? What do we need to change in order to be competitive or profitable or achieve whatever goal we have in the next quarter or the next half a year or the year or the next 5 years? And then management's job is to recognize that vision, to follow through with the goals, to follow through with the mission and the vision. So there's many different theories, as you will read in greater depth in your textbook. And it's early historical theories started with the great man theories. And these theories was there's going to be a great man that has, and often it was a man that has these traits, and these qualities and these abilities and these strengths that they've inherited from God or maybe their father or something else. And as long as we put a great man in charge, everything will be fine. This is the way we'll turn around the organization, that any organization that's failing, as long as we find a great man, it will succeed. And then they began to think, okay, maybe this is not the right way. Maybe it is not about finding one great man. Maybe it is more about the traits. Someone who's ambitious and desirable, and they have a vision for the organization or the team. After that, they evolved more into behavior theories, and that got more into behavior towards followers that correlated with leadership and how it's effective or not effective. So how the leader behaved, that would influence how the followers behaved, and then maybe that's the best way to organize a company or an organization. And then there was contingency theories, and that's leaders can analyze their situation and tailor their behavior to improve leadership effectiveness depending on the situation. In some organizations and sometimes that are falling apart, maybe they need more management, maybe they need more structure, maybe decisions should be top down. And then an organization is thriving, if you're a new manager or a new leader that comes into an organization that's doing well, they don't necessarily need top down. Maybe they need more of encouragement, and maybe they need more of someone who energizes them, but they don't need to necessarily reorganize everything. So these are contingency theories, also known as situational theories. So it depends on the situation. And essentially, the leadership cannot be understood in a vacuum, and that there's numerous variables and influences in an organization. All of those must be taken into consideration. Then we moved on to influence theories, and that was, the thought that a characteristic or charismatic leadership, their influence is based on the quality and how charismatic a personality or of a leader is. So if they have a big personality and they are very charismatic, that's what influences an organization. And then the relational theories is essentially about how leaders and followers interact with each other. So if you have a leader or a boss, and maybe you've had a boss, I know I have this way, that's very good at working with individuals and is very good at making you feel like you're valued and that your opinion is important and that you're fundamental to the organization. And so these theories look at how the relationships between the leaders and the followers really impact an organization. Transformational leadership and servant leadership are two important relational theories that will more depth again in your textbook, but this is kind of looking at leadership in a way of how does the relationship between the leader and the followers impact the course of an organization and the function of it. So here's a little bit more about leadership evolution, and as I explained, as you saw in Era 1, if you look in the bottom left hand corner of this graph, it started out with the great person leadership, the great man theory, the traits theory, that it was all about finding a great individual that would change the organization. And then we evolved to Era 2, which was really about relational management, behavior theories, contingency theories, that it was more about relationships and behaviors. And then we moved on to Era 3, which was more of a team or lateral leadership, meaning that the leader was kind of a teammate, more than I'm the boss and you must do what I say, that they worked alongside the people in the organization. It was more of a team. And then the era 4, which is the agile leadership, and that is more into relationship theories, and that leaders must be agile, that they must change the way that they lead depending on where the organization is and what they're trying to achieve. So here's the agile leader gives up control in a traditional sense and encourages the growth and development of others to ensure the organization's flexibility and responsiveness. So what you're doing is you're shifting responsibility to the followers, and you're saying, I believe that you can take on a certain aspect of the organization, and I don't have to check in with you every day. I don't have to make sure that you're doing your job. I'm going to encourage and inspire you to take on this role, and you're going to develop and grow as a human being. And that I am confident enough as a leader, and I believe in you that you can do this. And you can see how that's much different than the great man theory, where we started knowing that, or thinking that there needed to be one man in charge and he had all the answers. So derailment is a phenomenon in which a manager with an impressive track record, so they've done well in the past, reaches a certain level, but then goes off the track. And what that means, really, they go off course and they can't advance much because there's a mismatch between what the job requires and the personal skill sets and qualities that they possess. So if you had someone who believed in the great man theory and they went into an organization and they felt, okay, listen, I'm going to have all the answers and I'm going to run this organization the way I think. And then they get up into an organization that is constantly changing and they need help, that's going to be tough for them. They're going to go off track and they're not going to achieve the things that they hope to achieve, because really those types of organizations need a lot of leaders, need a lot of people handling different aspects of the organization to ensure that they continue to grow and thrive. So here are the 5 fatal flaws that cause derailment. There's performance problems, problems with relationships, difficulty changing, difficulty building and leading a team, and too narrow management experience. So the inability to work effectively or collaborate outside of their current functions. So these 5 flaws are what causes derailment. And those, you can go into more depth in that in our textbook. Learning to be a leader. So really, like I started out saying, that leadership is multifaceted. It's not like you learn one process or procedure and that's the way it always is. It is a continual learning loop. So the best leaders are the leaders that exhibit lifelong learning. So you can see up in the top box there, practice acts of leadership in your everyday life. Emulate successful leadership. They find a mentor, provide feedback, complete a leadership course to improve learning and skills, and work to develop personal traits of empathy and patience. So true leadership requires the leader to continue to evolve and learn continuously. And that is it. So that is the material you need to know from chapter 1 of the textbook. There is more detail, obviously, in the textbook, which I would encourage you to read through. And if you have any questions about any of that material I covered, please do not hesitate to reach out and ask.